Hello, Sagittarius, and welcome to your reading. This is Bright Soul Collective Tarot. My name is Laura, and these will be your intuitive insights and advice for the month of September 2022. This reading is for Sagittarius, Sun, Moon, and Rising. And by all means, if you're feeling curious, you can check out any of the readings that apply. Each one may resonate for you differently. And as always, before we get started, do keep in mind these readings are general in nature. So they're meant to apply to a more broad collective of individuals. And that means that not necessarily everything that comes through will make sense for you. That's why I highly recommend you take anything and everything that does resonate, however that connects to your specific situation, whatever that kind of stirs up within you. Keep an open mind to anything that might be helpful as you move through the month, and you can simply leave the rest. So Sagittarius, I hope that you have had an amazing summer. I can't believe it's September already, but that means that we are so close to your season. I feel like it's just around the corner, which is awesome. So yeah, I hope everything has been going well. I am super excited to be here and to take a look at the energy for you guys for September. I have your oracle cards here. We will get you some tarot. Once I'm finished with a thorough read of the tarot, I will share with you my channeled messages that I took some time to sit and connect with before I got your cards out. And then we will finish up with a couple of affirmations and a final oracle message to kind of tie everything together and give you some final advice to move through the month with. And before we jump into your cards, I will take a moment to share with you the channeled energetic impression, the energy that I was picking up on as I was preparing for your reading. The first thing that I noticed was a sensation of shoulder tension, like really, really tight shoulders. So tightness across the top of the shoulders, up the back of the neck, down the shoulder blades. And I was really, really focusing on just the sensation of tension. I didn't really have a lot of pain. And usually when I have tension in my shoulders, I feel like pain and discomfort associated with it, but I wasn't feeling the pain in this situation. So you may or may not have pain and tension in your shoulders. Even if you don't have pain, I would say just to be aware of any tension that you're holding in your shoulders and your upper body. It might be worth going for a massage, doing physical therapy, maybe doing some deep stretching, meth work. Meth work. Yeah, that sounds like, okay, don't start a meth lab. Breath work or meditation, anything that might help you release that tension. And the other thing that kind of came to mind is that quote that often is floating around on social media that says, like, you know, if you're reading this, unclench your jaw, release your shoulders from your ears, kind of thing. So that might be helpful, just kind of paying attention to any tension that you're carrying and throughout the day trying to reduce that if that's a thing for you. And yeah, that was coming through so strongly that I wasn't getting any other messages until I kind of made a point of acknowledging and writing that down. The next thing that I had was the experience of like the sensation of like when your heart beats really quickly, like with excitement or like nervousness. So I didn't really connect it with a heavy feeling of stress or tension or worry. It was more like nervous excitement, something that might scare you a little bit, you know, the sense of something being kind of exhilarating. So it could be a person, a situation, maybe a creative project, a decision that you've made, something that is exciting but scary, something that you're looking forward to. So I thought that was kind of fun. And then the next thing that I noticed was as I was doing my ritual and preparing the decks and connecting them to your energy and setting intentions, each deck, by the time I was finished all of my shuffling, was upside down. And that's significant to me because I do make an effort to keep all of my decks upright when I'm working with them and when I'm shuffling them. And I generally have a good amount of awareness of, you know, as I'm shuffling, like keeping everything upright. And so I was surprised to find that, yeah, by the time I was finished, I had started with upright decks and they were all inverted or upside down by the time I was done. And I was shocked because I didn't even realize that I had switched them around. And the reason that that's significant, if it was just one deck, then I would be like, oh, I probably just wasn't paying attention. But because it was each and every one of them, and there were 5 decks in total, I'm like, okay, there's something here. So I figured it's worth noting that this could mean like a number of different things for you. So it could be a month where you're coming out of a lot of things, like maybe there are a lot of cycles that are ending, maybe there's a lot of energy that's kind of changing or turning around. There could be a lot of things coming up to be kind of just acknowledged and released so that you can kind of leave that energy in the past. But it's like, in order to move forward from it, it may have to like resurface. You may have to kind of revisit it. So that could be a theme for you. The other kind of idea is it could be like the Hanged Man energy, which is kind of a slow, restful, stagnant energy. There's not necessarily forward movement, but it's like hanging upside down and looking at the world upside down until you kind of have some kind of realization or enlightenment, and you may get a new perspective on an existing or old situation, or perhaps a solution or a different way of kind of viewing or approaching your circumstances that'll be helpful to help you move forward. So it could be that. It could also be a sense of a greater level of awareness and tending to your inner landscape and your thoughts, more time for reflection and checking in with yourself. Virgo season is very good for that, like, developing that awareness and that connection to and relation to yourself, looking inward with like pinpoint focus and figuring out like where there's tension, where there's discomfort. Are there any needs that aren't being met? What is working for you and how can you use that and incorporate more of that? What isn't working for you or is ready to be released, and how can you let that go to open up room for something more aligned? So that might be a theme. And the other thing that's worth saying is that just because my personal experience is usually I have a good handle on on the orientation of the cards. So you might be feeling like your inner compass is a little bit off, maybe a little bit disoriented. It might be a little bit difficult to kind of know which way is up. So yeah, you might be feeling a little bit lost or uncertain. So that's just something to keep in mind if that makes sense for you as you move through the month. The other thing is it could be like ass backwards, like coming at things, problems or situations from the complete opposite perspective or the complete opposite direction from, where you normally would approach them. So that might be something that's helpful to you. It's like doing the opposite of what you would normally do, and just kind of coming at it from the other side could be helpful, especially for anything that feels stagnant. But yeah, so that was kind of an interesting little thing. And I didn't really pick up a lot of other stuff. Usually Sagittarius, even though you're a fire sign, you do have a lot of like mental energy. There does tend to be a lot of like thinking and analysis. And I really wasn't picking up on anything like that this month. I definitely got the sense that you may be getting a little bit more out of your head and into your heart, connecting more to your body, your feelings, your intuition, and letting that guide you a little bit and not worrying so much about what's going on in your head, rational, logical analysis or paying attention to what's going on outside of you. It's more kind of like working through things for yourself. So that was kind of interesting. So we'll get into your cards now. So your first oracle for this month is After the Storm, which is the first card in this deck. So new beginnings. And then we have Breath of the Cosmos, My Will to Thy Will, Micromanaging the Universe. So these are very interesting cards to come out together. It's a very unique message. I'm just trying to figure out where I want to start because there's so many, I think, talking points on both of these energies. So what I want to start with is the idea of a storm, right? So this can be anything that feels challenging, anything that's like scary, anything that's really particularly taxing on you, that's weighing you down, that's maybe putting a little bit of a damper on you in one way or another. This could be mentally, physically, emotionally, it could be in a material sense, it could be in relationships. So this card showing up here is basically saying like either you're in the midst of a storm or a storm is approaching. And how we view storms, how we think about storms, really that perspective that we come into those challenging times with is going to determine just how much we can get out of those experiences and how we can navigate them. So first and foremost, it's recognizing that it's not forever, right? It's a path. Storms pass, you know, there's usually that calm before the storm. There's that like tumultuous, destructive, maybe less positive sort of nature that can be scary and unsettling. And then there's generally like the calm after the storm, and there's a sense of, you know, being cleansed and it's over and it's, you know, time to kind of regroup, rebuild, you know, assess what has happened and how to best move forward. And so also, even just in nature, right? It's regarding a storm not as something bad, not as something negative or malicious or, you know, destructive that's working against you, or that, you know, it is a force of destruction, but it's not aiming to hurt or cause chaos in a negative sense. That can just be a byproduct, and that's also how we perceive it. But a storm in reality is just a buildup of energy that needs to be released, right? And so it's like, you think about it, that's what they say about temper tantrums with toddlers and stuff, right? It's basically like they may have all of this energy that's pent up that they can't express or they don't know how to express, and it just kind of boils over and it can just come out as a total meltdown, right? Because that energy needs to go somewhere, right? We can't just hold on to it. So this is basically saying like this storm that you may be in or may be coming, maybe you can sense it coming, it definitely has to do with something that's been building up, and it could have been building up for like a long period of time. It may be something that you've been conscious about, like something that's been on your mind, that's been stressing you out, that you've been trying to kind of work through or resolve to no end. And it could be something also subconscious that you're maybe not entirely aware of, right? Because even things like resentments, disagreements, things that don't sit well with us, that weigh on us, that we don't necessarily recognize or give the time to acknowledge and work through, we can tend to hold on to. And even if we're not actively holding on to it, it's almost like the imprint of that energy stays with us if we don't work to release it. And so basically, the whole point of this, especially if it's feeling dark, you know, especially if you are feeling like you're in the middle of a storm and things are kind of chaotic and there's destruction and there's fear and there's discomfort, and, you know, maybe the sun is obscured and things are feeling a little bit less hopeful. It's trusting that this is just, you know, a release of whatever has been building up. Like it's come to a head, it needs to be acknowledged. And, you know, there is a little bit of destruction, right? Because that's what transformation is all about. You know, we can't hold on to it forever, and it can't just, you know, it's not just going to disappear. So it's kind of like, yeah, I think things that are building up need to come to a head in order to be acknowledged, in order to be worked through. And sometimes it's also kind of pushing you to the point where you have to work through it. Like you have no choice but, you know, for you to be inundated in the middle of it. And it's those destructive and challenging periods that can be really upsetting. And they can also be really difficult in the sense that we judge ourselves, or we take it personally, or we see it as a, you know, happening as a result of our, not making the right decisions, not working hard enough, not doing the right things. And it's basically saying like, that's not the case. So, you know, not to be hard on yourself, not to take it too personally, but to see that this is actually a really beautiful opportunity for renewal, right? So there's like a cleansing quality to this storm. There's a lesson that can be learned. There are things that are going to kind of fall away or be taken away, and that you have the strength to weather the storm, regardless of what kind of discomfort you may be in right now. It's remembering, right, that there's a purpose to this, there's a cleansing kind of energy coming through, and that it's the most difficult times cannot last forever, right? It's going to be passing, and you are going to have that calm, after the storm, and you're going to be stronger for it and have the ability to kind of rebuild. But yeah, whatever's happening right now, whatever you're struggling with, whatever's been weighing on you, it's time, right? It's kind of time for it to come to a head. And it's time for you to allow yourself and your energy and your situation to be cleansed of whatever it is that's been kind of pressurizing. Because it's out of your control, right? Resistance isn't going to do anything. It's not going to help you. And if you can try to flow with it, with the knowledge that it will pass and you'll come out the other side, then it doesn't necessarily make it feel easier, but like I said, it's all about your attitude and your perspective. So we absolutely can take those difficult, challenging storms that come up in our lives, and we can make it more difficult for ourselves by resisting, right? So that's the trouble. And the thing is, like, whatever it is that's been building up, it may be something that has kind of been with you for a long time. So sometimes it's kind of self-created in a certain way, that like the pressure that was building up is something to do with our own minds or our beliefs, putting unnecessary pressure on ourselves, trying to be perfect, trying to meet certain expectations, fearing that we're not enough or that we're not doing enough. Like those burdens that we carry of like fear or self-doubt, like a pressure to look a certain way or to be a certain way. And basically, like, the more that energy is not aligned with us, but we put that pressure on ourselves, that pressure has to go somewhere. So it could very well be that the difficulty that you're experiencing, or whatever you find this month that is kind of like that tumultuous energy of like being in a storm and not having control of your situation, it could very well be cleansing, your self-perceptions, your beliefs about, what's appropriate, or perhaps even bringing you to a place where you're going to allow yourself to be more authentically you, without worrying so much about if you're acceptable, if you're meeting the expectations of others, if you're conforming to societal norms or conventions, and just kind of like letting yourself, remove that noise and remove that pressure. So even if you don't know what it's about, I think it's just important that you have the confidence in yourself that you'll be able to weather whatever comes your way. And on the other side of whatever this experience is, in spite of, moments of chaos and anxiety, that you have a lot of light, you've got a lot of love in your life, and you can trust that not only you are going to be changed by this experience and you have the strength to weather it, but you're going to come out the other side maybe a little bit more connected to that light, because whatever's blocking your inner light is going to be kind of torn away. And that can leave us feeling a little bit vulnerable. But the beauty of that is that we can kind of start rebuilding from a more authentic place. So that light has the opportunity to shine from like the first step of rebuilding. So you could be coming more like home to yourself in this process. And also to say, like, if you're not currently in it, but it's the storm of sorts is kind of coming, it's recognizing that it can be a really revitalizing process, not to fear it, right? I feel like naturally, even storms in general, really violent storms, have a negative connotation, and we tend to fear them because they can really create a lot of chaos in our external environment. But this is also recognizing, like, you can't have a rainbow without rain, and that it's hard to appreciate the beauty of, the sunlight and calm and peaceful weather when we don't have the kind of opposite nature of storm and destruction to balance that out, right? So it's kind of hard to know what you have if everything is easy all the time. And so it's to recognize that, yes, I think it's natural that we, feel resistant to those more tumultuous and challenging and potentially painful times in our lives. But it's recognizing that just as in nature, storms serve their purpose and are just kind of an expression of energy that has been built up and needs to go somewhere, the same thing happens with us in our lives and, in our emotions, the cycles that we go through in our relationships. And it's not a result of doing anything wrong, and it's not a punishment. It's just kind of something that you have to flow with the understanding that it's not something you can control. And control is a big theme here between these two cards, because it might be a little bit unsettling for you to be faced with a situation that's challenging and difficult that you can't necessarily do anything about. You won't be able to control it. You might not be able to remedy it. You might have, a limited ability to comfort yourself or to avoid whatever's going on. And so you can't necessarily control it. You can only participate in it. And that might be really challenging, but also illuminating, because I think your relationship to control is being challenged this month. Because the idea of breath of the cosmos is like this storm is kind of like, in a sense, a breath of fresh air, right? That it's going to transform and change things and leave you in a position where you're going to be able to see things from a different perspective, or kind of a fresh new start. And this is basically saying, like, we're in the world, but not of the world. So we have this kind of connection to the divine, and we are at the mercy of the universe and energy, right? So we can tap into it. It's part of us and we can use it, but we can't control it, and we can't control other people. We can't control our experiences. And, even like we try to control ourselves in a lot of ways that ends up taking us further away from our authenticity or the things that we really want, right? Because we're trying to, operate within a certain structure or meet certain expectations. And this is basically saying, like, whatever this challenge might be connected to, it's asking you to kind of just release control, because whatever you're experiencing, whatever's on your mind, and whatever degree of severity or not you may be experiencing in relation to this energy, the importance is it's setting you up for a fresh start. And the more that you can just release control, it has to do a lot with your perceptions and your narrative about things. So it's like, if you think that you're struggling, or you think that you're having a hard time because, you're not working hard enough, or like, you're not a good enough spouse, or you're not making enough money, or you're lazy or whatever, it's like, what you're experiencing and what you're struggling with is not a reflection of anything that you're doing wrong or anything that you have control over. In fact, it's only in releasing control and allowing yourself to experience your own grace, allowing yourself to see what life is trying to teach you, what the universe is trying to tell you, the direction that you're kind of being blown in by this storm, and approaching it with curiosity and a willingness to kind of be impacted by those experiences as a result of over analyzing the experience and seeing, like, what you can do to end it, or what you can do to avoid it, or what you should have done to prevent yourself from getting into this situation. So any of that overthinking, over analysis, chalking it all up to you and your will and the things that you want and the things that you've done, it's basically saying it's so much bigger than that. It has nothing to do with your agenda and what you want for yourself. It kind of has everything to do with what's best for you on a bigger scale, right? So it's asking you to trust that there's a bigger energy at play, there's a bigger picture to be seen, and you know yourself best, you know your wants and desires best, you know your agenda best. But everything that you know and everything that you're doing is very, very limited to your perceptions, the lens through which you view your life, which is based on your personal circumstances and experience, which is just one small piece of this, or one small part of this, immense web of reality and existence. And so it's not necessarily serving you to remain so tightly bound or kind of like within your specific box, because you're not a single entity and you're not in control of everything. So, you know, the more that you try to maintain that, the more you end up resisting life and the experiences that you're asked to be a part of, and the lessons that you're asked to learn, and the energy that you're asked to kind of flow with, which can make storms seem worse, right? And so it's basically saying, like, there is a divine intelligence that's kind of woven through everything. And the more that you can trust and be open to those experiences and allow yourself to flow through them, like lay down your expectations and your defenses, lay down your self-judgment that makes you feel as though you can or you need to assert your will, and recognize that you are a part of the enactment of like a divine will. Right? So whether you believe in God or not, or it's the universe or energy, that kind of stuff, it's basically saying, like, we each have a role to play. We each have lessons to learn. And we're here it's like Earth School, right? We're here to learn. We're here to grow. And if we think that we know everything, and if we think that we know best, and if we're under the impression or the illusion that it's up to us and that we have control, we're going to be treating ourselves in a really unreasonable way. And we're going to be blocking ourselves off to, you know, the love and the wisdom that's available to us and that is being gifted to us through our experiences, and even challenging experiences such as these storms, right? So really, you're being asked to surrender, right? Surrender and start to view life as a dance, right? Like, instead of being afraid of this rainstorm and hunkering down and feeling sad and feeling depressed, it's like, dance in the rain, right? So it's finding surrender and freedom even in the most difficult of circumstances. And the beautiful thing is, the more that you can flow with life, especially when you're feeling challenged and when things are maybe feeling a little bit dark, if you can do that during the storm, you can do that when things are good, right? So it's like, it may make weathering the storm feel a little bit easier, even if it's not super enjoyable, but it has the opportunity to really amplify the amount of peace and joy that you can experience once you come out of this, right? So it's like recognizing that you have the ability to flow with life and to trust yourself and to trust the process, so to speak, regardless of what the internal or external climate is looking like. And that the more that you allow yourself to dance with and to be moved by life and to kind of surrender to this power and this vision and this energy that's greater than us and our own individual will, when you can kind of bow down to that and release your will, you actually allow yourself to come more into alignment with with your heart, with your light, with your most authentic self. So there really is an opportunity for freedom and a fresh start and a new way forward that's going to be maybe more authentic, more peaceful, more happy, even if there is a certain amount of struggle or darkness that needs to be worked through. But yeah, there's a lot of potential there for something beautiful to come out of it. But it's a choice that you have to make, right? To drop the resistance and to drop the idea that, like, you know, you are or you should be in control, or things are happening directly as a result of, you know, your agenda and the amount of work that you put in. And yeah, just allowing yourself to kind of let go, because the more that you resist it, I think the more troublesome this energy, the more this energy being released will likely take out of you. So I know it's easier said than done. Like, oh, just, you know, let go, trust, you know, stop controlling. It's not easy by any means. So if you're struggling with it, you know, take heart, because this is a very human experience. But I think it's just remembering that, you know, there's something good waiting there for you, and that it's okay to give yourself permission to just let go of, you know, the stress and the pressure that you put on yourself, because there's so much more at play than just you exerting your will. And so it's unreasonable to expect that everything is going to work out as it should, just because you're taking action in a certain way, or that things are happening just because you didn't take action in a certain way, right? There's so much more to it than that. And I think like flowing with life a little bit more will help take the pressure off of you when you can say like, hey, you know, I don't have full control. I just have to kind of flow with life and do the best that I can to manage things in a way that, you know, supports my health and my well-being, right? Okay, so for tarot, we have, your first card is the Father of Wands. We have the Devil. We have the Six of Cups, and we have Strength. And at the bottom of the deck, we have the Son of Swords. So the Son of Swords is the Knight of Swords. And you have two major arcana here. So you've got the Devil, which is Earth, Capricorn energy, and you've got Strength, which is Fire, Leo energy. And I actually really like this progression of energy that we've got here. So what I'm going to do, I will get clarifiers for each of these cards, and then we'll do a full read of them all. Okay, so Father of Wands is clarified by the Two of Wands. There we go. The Devil is clarified by Strength. So there you go. There's that Leo energy again. We'll clarify the Six of Cups. So yeah, this is a significant energy. However, well, obviously I'll read the cards more deeply, but however you might connect with that, that seems to be very significant this month because this is your challenge position. The Six of Cups is related or clarified by the Star. And finally, let's clarify Strength. Strength is clarified by the Ten of Pentacles. And at the bottom of the deck, we have the Eight of Wands. Wow, this is a whole story right here. Okay, hold on. Let me have a sip of my coffee before I jump like headlong into this. Okay. So we have a lot of Wands energy, a lot of fire energy here, which doesn't surprise me because you are a fire sign. So that's kind of like your natal energy. It's that passion, excitement, creativity, the things that light you up. It's your inner light, your most authentic truth, the things that inspire you to move forward and to take action in the world around you. You know, it can be vision, that kind of energy. So we've got at the bottom of the deck, the Son of Swords and the Eight of Wands. And the thing that I find really interesting, so this is like the underlying energy. It can be past energy, or it can just be the energy that's influencing this progression for this month. But the thing that's really interesting about both of these cards is they are about like forward movement, like almost aggressive forward movement, right? So the Son of Swords is the Knight of Swords, and the Knight of Swords is pretty much, out of the knights, the most fast moving and aggressive. Like, so the Knight of Wands is pretty, you know, aggressive, like fast moving, but the Son of Swords is kind of next level, to the point where it can be the energy almost of like jumping the gun, like act first, think later, which is funny because swords are usually about our thoughts, our perceptions, our beliefs, the way that we view ourselves and the world, the way that we communicate with each other, that kind of energy. And so it's kind of like charging boldly in a direction because you have the impulse. So it can be impulsive. It can be a little bit irrational. It can even be a little bit reckless, but it's also saying that, like, sure, there's a shadow side to that, but also there's a benefit in kind of just going after what you want without thinking so much that you tie yourself up in a whole bunch of red tape and you don't take action. So, and the Eight of Wands is a card of fast forward movement. So it can be like, you know, like incoming communication or incoming inspiration or ideas, like things that kind of light you up, right? And it's almost like an infectious energy. So it's like you have this idea, you have this excitement, you have this inspiration, and it's almost, you know, so potent that it's like, you know, the spark that kind of lights the gasoline. And so it can be, you know, being inspired and moving from this energy can result in a whole lot of change or a whole lot of forward movement or a whole lot of success. Like there's the opportunity for things to drastically change or move forward or be impacted like in a very short period of time. And it can also be like a lot of communication coming into you, a lot of attention. But with these together, I think it's really interesting because obviously air and fire are kind of like a complementary pairing, right? So, you know, fanning the flames to help them grow. And because they're both kind of forward charging, competent, fast moving energies that aren't necessarily tied up in all of the details or over analysis, it's kind of like it's almost setting the stage for like an explosion. And that explosion can be something that really moves you forward towards something that you want to manifest or connect with, or it can be something really volatile depending on what energy you're coming at, what your intention is, right? So yeah, there could be something that happened that like moved you forward really quickly, or like a situation that has been moving forward really quickly, almost to the point where it feels out of your control. And I would say that if you've experienced a lot of change, a lot of motion, a lot of movement, almost so much so that it's maybe hard to adjust or you haven't had a moment to catch your breath, it could be unsettling to feel like you're not in control, and that might mean that you're putting a lot more pressure on yourself to control what you can, or because you're having, you know, maybe a challenging time adapting to this really what's the word that I'm looking for, not volatile, but like this kind of like fast moving energy. Yeah, you might be kind of beating up on yourself, expecting that you should be doing better, or expecting that you should have more control, or that you should be able to tame this. And I think what I want to say is like, whatever this is, this could be part of the storm. It's like moving forward, things are changing in one way or another. And especially because we've got two owls here. I just noticed that. So it could be like whatever this energy is, like that's your storm. And so it's not necessarily something that you're meant to control, right? And this is like this is like you're along for the ride because things are just kind of flowing, and it's like sink or swim. You gotta keep your head above the water kind of thing. So that's kind of an interesting connection in terms of the underlying energy. Your strength is showing up as the Father of Wands, which is the King of Wands, and clarified by the Two of Wands. And what I really like is, so the snake here, obviously, like, I think this is a cobra, right? So you think about it, it's a very venomous snake. It's very powerful, right? So it's kind of like, it's a dominant energy because even though it might not be the strongest animal or like the top predator, it's like, it's got such an intense ability to protect itself that it's kind of sending out a message, right? It's sending out a message like, hey, like I'm the boss here. And snakes also represent transformation, because it's like as you grow, you shed your skin, right? So as not to be constricted and prevented from expanding. So this is very much an energy of being able to allow yourself to be guided by your passions and your inspiration and your creativity, trusting your ability, having confidence in yourself, not only in your ability to kind of recognize your vision, but to bring it forward in an authentic way, to show up authentically, and to trust that you've got like an infectious enthusiasm and an ability to influence other people, right? When people see you in your authentic energy, acting from a place of inspiration, you know, feeling good and feeling confident, they pick up on that, right? And people will be drawn to you and will kind of like get behind you or want to support you just as a result of you owning that energy, and like finding your own way. So I think that it's important, like anything that's really important and unique to you, any vision that you have for the future, anything that you're particularly excited about, the things that are really kind of connected to your passion, I think it's important that you allow yourself to incorporate that into your daily life, to express that, whether other people agree or whether it's well received or not, I think is besides the point, because if you've got that vision for yourself, all that's important is that you know it and that you're confident in it and that you take action and that will lay the foundation, right? And that the people who understand or who support it will come in. And you're also setting an example for other people to do that. So it's like, this is a very stable, but also a very transformative card. And it's accepting that, you know, you deserve to continue learning and growing. You don't want to be stuck. You don't want to get stuck in a repetitive cycle. You don't want to play it small. You don't want to box yourself in, right? Because it's recognizing that as you move through cycles, as you learn lessons, as you kind of master certain skills, and like let go of things that don't work or that you've outgrown, that you're going to continue aligning with what's best for you and in your own unique path. And that's not something that anyone else can know for you, right? So it's like, this is about recognizing that you have all of the strength and the stability within you to do what you need to do for yourself and what's right for you, even if you don't necessarily have that support, right? And with the Two of Wands here, this is about making a decision, right? Quite often it can be about making a decision to follow your heart, right? To embrace your confidence, to embrace your skills, you know, the things that you have to offer, your inner light, the things that you're passionate about, any kind of creative expression. And then this is also kind of like having a sense of adventure, right? So it's like you have a choice that you can, you know, exist within a structure that's laid out for you, you know, take the path that's well traveled, stay in a comfort zone, or you can make the decision to say like, hey, comfort zone is fine and it's comfortable, but not necessarily a great place for learning and growth. And if you're somebody who's able to embrace the beauty of transformation and being transformed by life experiences, you're not necessarily going to be serving yourself by making a decision to stay in a comfort zone simply because things are kind of within your control. So it can be scary to look out at the world and say like, hey, there's a path unique to me. I just have to kind of decide to blaze that trail for myself. Yeah, it can be scary. There are unknowns. There are a lot of things that are out of our control. But when you're in this confident, like King of Wands energy, it's like, you also have the ability to shape your own destiny. And when you can approach the things that excite you with a sense of curiosity and an adventure, and with a level of confidence in your ability to weather the storm and to make it through your experiences, then it's like, there's kind of a whole new level of life experience that opens up to you, as opposed to when you shelter yourself. And the thing is, like, comfort zones, you know, sometimes we need them. Sometimes we need to be in that safe place, in that shelter, particularly if we've been through a lot and we're in survival mode. It doesn't necessarily feel safe to step out into the unknown because we might not have all of our inner resources to make use of, right? So this is showing up as your strength, you being you being confident in yourself, you shining your light regardless of what anyone else thinks, right? Like being the leader, setting the example for other people, and being further empowered by just fearlessly kind of charging forward in your own way, right? And you don't have to do it. It's not about controlling your life situations or other people. It's just about harnessing your own power and taking yourself in a direction that makes sense to you. And so your challenge this month is showing up as the Devil, clarified by Strength. So this is, it's kind of about your relationship to material things, you know, and material abundance. So that would be career, your money, your savings, anything material that you own, like cars, houses. It can also have to do with like your home life and your family, your body and your health. And so the thing is, the Devil is a very skilled kind of manifester, right? So you can, this energy is able to kind of like take the action, put in the hard work, and make things happen in the external world, right? So like make things happen, put in the work, build the business, make the money, secure the savings, make the purchases. Like it's a very, it's a very capable and abundant manifester in the physical realm. And the trouble with that is when you're very much focused on the material world and money and material goods and all of those external things, it can be really easy to lose sight of, you know, your emotions, your intuition, your passion, your creativity, your inspiration, the things that are kind of like uniquely important to you. It can be easy to just get swept up in solely the material. And especially if your effort in the material world translates into, you know, significant forward movement or abundance, it can almost be tempting to throw away the things that are important to you beyond the material, beyond the physical, and just kind of revel in nothing but materialism, money and goods, right? So success and stability and abundance are beautiful things, but the easier they come, the more focused we are on solely that, the more easily we can be swayed or corrupted. And so it can kind of spiral into greed or materialism or vanity, right? Which basically keeps us trapped in an area where we're focused solely on the external and solely on the material, and we can become very focused on wealth in a physical 3D environmental kind of sense, and we can kind of become impoverished in terms of our emotions and, you know, our soul. Because you think about the devil, this goat here, those mountain goats are sure-footed, and that's one of their greatest strengths, is that they can navigate and they're agile. They can get to places that other animals can't necessarily get to, and they've got balance and strength to keep them there. But the devil's feet are on fire, so it's kind of like sometimes this energy means that we can kind of shoot ourselves in the foot, and our greatest strength can also become our greatest weakness, because if we allow things outside of us to hold power over us, then we're not necessarily making empowered decisions that are actually aligned with what's best for us, right? So this could be something that you struggle with. This could be something maybe generationally that was handed down to you. You might have fear or limitation associated with material abundance, or feeling as though like material abundance is the only way to live your life, the only thing that matters. Or you could have people around you that are in that space. And for it to come up with strength, it's interesting because strength is all about having the courage to just be your authentic self, right? You know, like not needing to prove anything to anyone, not needing to play it small, and also recognizing that strength is not just about displays of strength. It's not just about, you know, success. It's not just about making things happen and having the best of everything, right? It's not demonstrative in a way that's necessarily tangible in a physical sense. It's about inner strength, right? Being able to offer kindness and compassion and understanding to yourself first and foremost, to treat yourself with love and kindness and respect. And when you are able to master that, it's a lot easier to extend that to other people. And strength is also about being able to resist operating from a place of fear and limitation, like an anxiety, which a lot of times materialism and this kind of struggle can be motivated by fear. So the more fearful that we become about, you know, not having enough abundance or not proving our success enough in terms of like our physical world, the more we fall into fear, and we kind of give up our personal power. We give up our strength in the things that make us uniquely us, and we kind of fall into a trap of, you can give your power away. You can give your power away to the things that make you feel weak, to the things that make you feel tempted, to the fear and the limitation that either something that you have a connection to or maybe is being projected onto you. And so this is important to recognize that, like, you ultimately get to make a decision if you're going to live your life from a place of fear and limitation and avoidance, or if you want to connect more with your confidence and connect more with your inner light, and to trust that even in situations where things are challenging, you know, maybe there's loss of a job, loss of finances, money is tight, maybe you haven't experienced the abundance or success that you're hoping for, but it's still allowing yourself to be kind and compassionate to yourself, right? And to allow space for yourself and the things that are meaningful to you, and to take care of your internal environment instead of giving away your power to a purely, I don't want to say purely superficial, but I don't mean superficial in a judgmental way. I just mean like, you know, externally focused way as opposed to internally focused. This is a very internally empowered energy, which goes really nicely with this Father of Wands. So your advice or your recommended kind of energy to manage or work through or overcome this challenge, however you relate to that this month, has a lot to do with your past experiences, right? Your roots, your family, your heritage, or it could be, you know, your childhood, the formative emotional experiences that you've had in your life. So if this kind of devil energy, this challenging energy that's outwardly focused and materially focused, if it's yours that has been handed down to you, or you have specific feelings about it as a result of what you experienced as a child or growing up, there could be some need for reflection and healing there. And if it's not your energy, but it's an external energy that's being applied to you, it's recognizing where that energy is coming from. So if it's another person, if it's your parents, if it's, you know, your colleagues, your friends, if it's your significant other, it's recognizing that that is likely tied to some kind of formative emotional experience that that person had growing up, right? So something that was imprinted, right? Something that was kind of handed down. And for the star to come up underneath the Six of Cups, this is basically saying that like there is some healing that needs to be done, right? So it's like, you know, you don't have to be at the mercy of this energy. You don't have to give into it, but you also don't have to spend your life fighting it, right? It's something that has a root cause, a root origin. And I think the more prevalent that energy and the more prevalent that struggle is in your day-to-day life, the more that energy is really just calling to be acknowledged and to be recognized. It's basically coming up to be healed. So it's almost like what we were saying about the storm. When things come to a head, maybe this pressure, whatever this is, however you relate to this earth versus fire, maybe this is something that's been building up for a very long time. And maybe now it's just kind of reached the head where you're in the middle of the storm and it's asking to be acknowledged. It's asking to be understood. It's asking to be healed. And through whatever kind of tumultuous experience you have in relation to this, I think in order to kind of weather that storm and to appreciate the freedom and renewal and refreshment that comes after the storm has passed, there is a need to kind of embrace your roots, your past experiences. And so it's interesting because the Six of Cups is also a card of kind of like nostalgia. So it can be looking back on our childhood, those formative experiences, those things that we look upon fondly as good memories and things that we value and we want to take forward and, you know, create for our own families, and also the trauma and the things that impact us maybe on a not so great emotional level. And this is also like with cups, a lot of the stuff that impacts us can kind of exist and operate under the surface of our awareness. So in our subconscious. So it's very possible that you or whoever you're dealing with may have a lot of stuff on an emotional level that's gone untended to, because it's existing in a more subconscious way. So it's kind of subconscious feelings and motivations that are being translated into action in like the external environment. And so the solution is not something that's going to be external. It's not going to be resolved in that way. It's going to be resolved by looking a little bit deeper beneath the surface, tending to the emotions, looking back on the past but with a new set of eyes. So, one thing is like we have different experiences when we're children than we do as adults. And so sometimes positive or negative, we can look back on experiences that impacted us greatly as children. And with the experience and the knowledge and the awareness that we have now, we can kind of work through it from a different perspective, right? So whether it was something really damaging, we can look back and see how our life has progressed since then, how that experience has impacted the decisions that we've made for ourselves, and kind of come to terms with the fact that it was a part of our story that was necessary, figure out how we've been able to grow, how it has served us, and to be able to kind of let go of the negative attachments or connotations, right? So that's how healing happens in this capacity, is being willing to kind of look back and see things from a new perspective, give yourself a little bit more love, a little bit more compassion, a little bit more understanding, and to have hope, right? To have hope that, you're on the right path, you're only human, but you've got a connection, right? You've got a connection to your ancestors and those who come before you, but you also have a connection to the divine. And that light that's within you, that light of authenticity and the things that inspire you and that are most important to you, that's longing to be accepted and to be shone, is also the same light, from the sun and the stars. Like you are made of stardust, right? So it's like everything is connected, whether you can see it or not. And I think that it can be difficult to go through, look back on our experiences as children, especially things related to our family, relationships with family members, family dynamics, especially generational cycles. It can be difficult to look back on that. It can be difficult to acknowledge. Sometimes it can be difficult to break free and to make a decision to do something differently, especially if you're still kind of involved in those dynamics and you're trying to move forward, but everyone's still there. So this is all about having hope that, and it also connects. So these are both eights, right? So this is about having hope and knowing that you have the inner strength to undertake this healing, and that while you're healing, and even if you are kind of like in the midst of a storm, that you are still connected, right? You're still connected to your fate, connected to your destiny. And the more that you can acknowledge what's most important to you, and the more that you can kind of work through things in a way that feels aligned to you, the more you're coming into alignment with your path, the more you're able to kind of connect to your purpose. So it's trusting that you, whatever this is, whatever the storm is, you have the strength to work through it, and that you're going to come out the other side. And there's opportunity for healing and release. And that is only going to bring you further into alignment with, this light that you're trying to connect with or amplify. And what I really love is that your final kind of piece of advice, what you need to know for this month overall, is coming up as strength in the 10 of Pentacles. And so this is really beautiful because strength was showing up in your challenge for this month. So the fact that it's showing up as your challenge, but it's also showing up as what you need to know, with the 10 of Pentacles coming up, which is like the happily ever after in the material sense, right? So it's having lots of financial abundance. It could be having very stable, abundant job, having like savings, having the nice house, having the car, having the family, right? So it's kind of like, marriage, strong relationship with your partner, beautiful house, 2.5 kids, Labrador, like the picture of, and it doesn't have to be that standard that you measure yourself by, but it's like what you consider to be like the ultimate material abundance and stability, coming to like the end, seeing that come to fruition, for that to come out with strength, which was your challenge. It's basically saying that like you may not see things completely tie up in a way that you want them to, or that you're satisfied with over the course of the month, but I'm seeing that you have the opportunity to make a great deal of headway, and you might come to a place where it could resolve. You could make a huge change this month. There could be a lot of motion, or you could be definitely coming into a place where you see that you're moving out of this challenge. You see that you're undergoing this healing, and you're able to make the most out of your energy, right? So it's like the sun is shining on you. You're strong, you're kind, you're compassionate, with yourself, but it also means that you're not going to be taking any shit, right? So it's like you can set boundaries, you can hold boundaries with love and light, you can protect your energy and your vision and the things that are most important to you so that you are allowed to have a peaceful, happy life. You don't need to constantly be living with fear, because you see, it's dark below and light above. And everything is connected, right? There's a time for everything. There's a time for love and joy and happiness, and there's a time for challenge and struggle, right? That's just the human experience. But it's also saying, like, you kind of have a decision to make where you can acknowledge that fear and anxiety and limitation exist, particularly when it comes to, you know, your material existence and however you connect to abundance. You might have blocks that you're facing in terms of material abundance, or appreciating and recognizing material abundance, feeling as though you have enough. So it's like you have the choice not to succumb to fear, not to succumb to worry or limitation, and to be able to connect with your light and your inspiration and your passion, and trust that you can still experience abundance, that you can still, you know, you can still bring about and manifest the material abundance, whether it's home, family, health, finances, job, actual material belongings. You can still get there. You can still get there without succumbing to this devil energy, right? Because sometimes the devil can play on our fears and manipulate us in ways where we give away our power. We feel powerless, or we feel like the only way to get to what we want is to be afraid, right? Or to be stressed, or to be fearful. And then this is saying, like, there's another way. You can follow the light instead. You can play to your strengths, and that maintaining kindness and compassion for yourself and having confidence in your ability to get through things, and not succumbing to fear or worry or anxiety, is still going to allow you to move in a beautiful direction and to manifest the abundance that you want. So you can start to see whatever this energy is here, you can start to see that changing throughout the month. But I think it is going to start with you, and you probably are going to have to stand in your power a little bit, because, like, sometimes the thing with strength also is you have to kind of balance it out. Like, sometimes strength is, you know, being quiet and loving and gentle like a lamb, and sometimes it's about being fierce like a lion, and you being able to check in with yourself and trust when it's time to be gentle and when you really need to stand your ground, when you need to set and enforce boundaries, right? So, and like letting go of control, right? This overlying thing. Control is a big issue, whether it's you needing to control, other people needing to control, maybe like both parties needing to control in different ways. And it's recognizing that, like, controlling and micromanaging things isn't the issue. It's kind of like taking a look at where you are, what you're struggling with, and what you're experiencing, and how that's asking you to elevate, what that's asking you to learn, what is asking to be acknowledged and released, what's asking to be healed from your past, maybe even generationally, and recognizing that power is, you know, within you, and you have the decision to move in that direction. So I think that's really lovely. I'm going to share with you your channeled messages, and then we will get into a couple of affirmations and a final oracle card. Like I said, these readings have been long. I'm doing my best to get it all out there. So the first channeled message that came through for your Sagittarius was opening your third eye. And so the sense that I got is like coming into a greater level of awareness and acceptance of the wealth of information that's available to you beyond just the physical, beyond just the, you know, 3D tangible stuff that you can see with your eyes and that you can rationalize. So you may be somebody who has a spiritual inclination or spiritual sensitivities. That might be something that's important to you, that you're already connected with. It may be something that you've kind of fallen away from. It may be something that you're looking to strengthen. I think this is a good month, right? So because it says opening, I get the sense that it might require a little bit of attention and work. So I would say perhaps doing some reading, maybe some like third eye meditations to help you kind of activate. taking time to sit in quiet and to see what messages come up for you intuitively. And also, I would say, because the third eye is all about like, you know, receiving information, right? So we can pick up on it energetically, you know, like sensing somebody's emotions or their mental state, sensing their intentions, picking up on like the vibe of a room. So I would say pay a lot of attention to the information that you're getting intuitively. And so like what you're feeling, what you're sensing, what you're picking up on, that's not going to come from a place of thought or analysis. It's not going to be personal to you, like your opinion or your assessment. It's just going to be information that kind of comes through in an even, unbiased way, that it's just information, just as if you were reading a book. So it's not about what you think or feel about it. You don't want to get trapped in trying to understand or rationalize or analyze it, but just receiving it, acknowledging it, and seeing what wisdom might be available to you. So yeah, trusting what you pick up on over, you know, trying to analyze, because sometimes we pick up on things intuitively, and then when we try to like understand or rationalize them, fear and anxiety comes in, and we end up losing the message entirely because we just aren't trusting ourselves. So this is a really good month for you to work on that, to recognize your sensitivities, to kind of practice that, and to trust your gut when it comes to, you know, the vibes, the information that you're getting energetically. The next message that came through was endless distraction. So I got the sense like it might be difficult for you to focus on just one thing. You might be somebody who is just easily distracted. So it's like you start one thing and then you come across another, and then you fall into that, and then you come across another. So you might have a whole bunch of things on the go that are unfinished. So you're kind of busy all day doing stuff, but nothing gets completed because you're just bouncing from one thing to another. And there could be a sense of like frustration and maybe even self-judgment as a result of that, because you feel like you're not effective enough. So I would say like this is especially easy to fall into if you do have a lot on your plate. Like if you've got a lot of like items on your list, it can be really easy to become scattered and just jump from one thing to another. So if that's something, and it can become a chain reaction, right? It's just one thing after another. So if that's something that you struggle with, I would just say like, take a look at what's on your list and prioritize maybe top 3, and just be really present and intentional about what you're doing and why you're doing it and getting it done. And recognize that like, yeah, distractions may come up, or you may feel tempted to start something else. You may even start something else, and then you have to kind of gently correct yourself and bring yourself back. And remember that the goal is to get that, even just that one thing done. So maybe approach it like meditation. Where it's like your mind may wander, and when you recognize that you've wandered off course, just gently bring yourself back and keep going. The next message that came through was Mississippi Queen. So the song, maybe a boat name, I don't know. That would be very unique to you. If you have a connection to that, it might be worth listening to the song. And the last message that came through is facing the truth, and then your truth. So it's like the truth of the matter, maybe the things that we can't control or that are out of our wheelhouse that we just kind of have to be able to accept, and then our truth as a result. So it's like, if this situation is the truth, like if this is all that can be done and it's out of your control, what's true for you then? Like, what do you need to do? What's going to be most empowering? What's the best way for you to handle it? And really just kind of feel empowered to move through life in a way where you're respecting the limitations and the boundaries and the things that you can't control, and you're feeling empowered to make decisions that are going to be aligned, are going to take you in a direction that serves you. Because it might require kind of getting honest with yourself and others and setting some boundaries, but that kind of ultimately means like when you can accept a situation and then connect to your truth and move from an empowered place, then it makes it a lot easier to kind of connect with peace. Right. So we're going to get to a couple of affirmations and a final oracle to close off the reading. This has been a lot. Don't mind if you can hear crying in the background. My baby is awake. My husband's tending to her, so it might just be a little noisy for a moment. Okay, so your affirmations are I can and I will, which is this very strong, confident fire energy. Like, don't let anyone dim your shine. Don't agree to things that don't serve you. Don't question your strength or allow yourself to fall into fear, things that kind of undermine your confidence. Know that you can do whatever you set your mind to, and take action. Take action from that place of confidence, even if you haven't analyzed every step, right? And then we've got I silence my mind and listen intently. So yeah, that has a lot to do with really connecting to your inner light, your inner wisdom, allowing time to disconnect from your external environment and any potential distractions. And it's like that inward focus, right? And also when you silence your mind and listen intently, especially in the midst of a storm, that can make it easier to determine what's coming up for you. You know, what are you being guided to recognize? What lesson is asking to be learned, so that you can be moved by life instead of trying to control it, right? Okay, so we've got your final oracle for this month, which is Observer. So I'm going to read this directly from the book. Oh my gosh, she's just getting louder and louder. I'm sorry, guys. It's distracting for me, so I can imagine it's distracting for you. I will get this tied up. Okay, Observer. Essential meanings are perspective, objectivity, neutral observation from a distance. The oracle's message. Most people see the world through a personal lens. They closely identify with their feelings and experiences, so much so that they come to believe these are the only reality. There are times when you need to distance in order to gain perspective and understand your circumstances from a more neutral vantage point. Now is one of those times in your life. This is a perfect moment for you to begin to do some exploring. Instead of only considering yourself, consider what you need to understand about the conditions, people, culture, and environment you're engaged with now. You'll be so happy you did. Illumination is the miracle you seek and will indeed find. Relationship message. Sometimes you just can't see the forest for the trees in your way. Feelings can get all jumbled up, and often you hear one thing when a person says another. It can be like an echo of an unresolved past experience dubbed over your conversation. Take time out before you react. It's likely the other person has no idea how his or her words have affected you. Take a few steps back and lend understanding to the situation. Have faith in your connection. So that has a lot to do with strength too, right? Trusting that sometimes it's your conditioning that might cause you to respond a certain way, and doing what you need to do to offer kindness and compassion and understanding to yourself and the other person. Have faith in your connection and trust that you can come together. Take to higher ground now and cultivate curiosity about what you observe in yourself, in others, and in the landscape. You will find things much improved sooner than you know. And then prosperity. It is an advantageous time for you to get some distance from what you're doing and see your work and your projects from a different perspective. The trick is to connect to the essence of your goals and aspirations while letting the form and timing be dictated by spirit. You may be too personally attached to an outcome and unable to see the next miracle because it's not turning out exactly as you planned. Trust spirit. The perfect version of your abundance is right in front of you. Remain neutral and curious and watch the miracle unfold. And then protection message. Ever think sometimes your life options are suction cupped to your face and you can't see beyond yourself? There's a big world out there, a multitude of potential realities that you're unable to perceive at present. So you're a little stuck? It's time to get advice from someone you trust, someone who has a better perspective on your circumstances. Other points of view are needed now before you move forward. Take heart. A beautiful vista is waiting for you to drink it in. You just need a little help widening your scope beyond your small self. So yeah, I think that kind of goes nicely with the other oracle cards, which is basically about surrendering and releasing control and recognizing that, you know, the way that you view things and your ideas about your agenda and taking control of situations is very limited to your personal experience. And there's a lot more out there for you to connect with. There's a lot more to learn. There's a lot more opportunity than you may realize. And sometimes that's the whole point of the storm, is to just kind of knock down those ideas about what is and what can be and open you up to an opportunity for healing and release, to step into a new perspective. So I think that's really beautiful. I'm going to leave your reading there, Sagittarius. Thank you so much for joining me and for sticking it out. If you enjoyed this reading, the best way to support me is to like this video on YouTube. You can leave me a comment and let me know how it resonated. Beyond that, if anyone you know of might be interested in or might benefit from my readings, you can share my channel or my content with them. And if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to my channel. And not only that, but ensure you're signed up for notifications with the little bell icon. That will keep you up to date as new readings are posted. So Sagittarius, it's been an absolute pleasure. I apologize again for the screaming. It's been an absolute pleasure reading for you as always. I hope you have a beautiful month, and I'm very much looking forward to reading for you next month as well and reconnecting. And in the meantime, until we see each other next, I am wishing you all the very best.